What is up, everybody? Run Pure Sports NBA Final Countdown Show, free on the YouTube channel for you guys. We are breaking down the NBA slate. If you want NFL stuff, this is not the place to be. We got tons of content that you can go watch for the Miami Dolphins and the Rams. But if you're here, it's for the NBA talk. And we got two guys ready to talk some NBA with us. And as one of my buddies said in another chat, it's a dad slate, right? The dads are all excited. Everything starts at 8 p.m. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. I mean, it's a classic dad slate. So we got one dad here, AP. I'm sure you're excited. You can go to, if you need to go to a cello concert tonight, you can go to that. You can go to your daughter's dance stuff, whatever you want to go to, AP. You can certainly go to tonight. But how's it going over there?
Yeah, doing well. No cello concerts. Picking up the daughters later though. So the timing of this it's all good. I will say the dad slate makes sense. Now we just got to ship. We got to bring it home, and it is always fun when these games all start at the same time. You can watch, like if you're live sweating in the app. I mean, you're paying a little bit more closer attention. There's no late swap. You got to make your decisions now, and excited to break it down with you guys. It's a fun slate for sure.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't love these ones as much because the sweat it's gone so fast, right? Like I don't get to do some swaps if I'm down or anything like that. Like the other day, I did a swap to get myself some money back. I think I got off Derrick Jones Jr. for Chris Boucher. That got me, not a lot of money back, but it was something, right? It wasn't anything. So I enjoy when we can swap and have a good time and have a longer sweat. But we do have a football game on. And AP, before I go to DC. I got to hear about your sweat on the Broncos and Chiefs. Were you all worried about the Broncos in that field goal at the end of the game?
I mean, I kind of wasn't. Chiefs are so due for a loss. The Broncos are usually the team that gives them a loss, at least one loss every year. And at the end, it was Chiefs didn't deserve to win that one, but great teams, they find ways to win. So that's what happened.
No, you're not wrong. Same with the Lions last night. I mean, that was an insane win. But DC, I'll go over to you. We got NBA to talk about. We'll go game by game. It'll be a good time. But talk about your Sunday, I guess, and if you're excited for tonight's game.
It's horrible. I was hoping to get back to the winner's circle tonight, but you just informed me it's a dad slate, and I don't have any children, so I don't know. Maybe I should unregister the contest, save my money. Leave it to AP to ship. But no, we'll be back in the streets, NFL, NBA. Fun slate with both of the slates starting within, 15 minutes of each other, and then no more swaps to do. Obviously, you can fire in some bets or something like that. But yeah, licking my wounds a little bit today from stacking up Aaron Rodgers, who I think I'm officially ready to cross this man off of my list permanently, right? He's 78 years old, and I've seen enough from Rodgers. So that was painful after – honestly, a pretty good start to the early games yesterday. I was all excited with my Rodgers double stacks and just max pain watching that pathetic offense for 3 hours. So, yeah, I was kind of waiting for the sports to get going today. I need to get that bad taste out of my mouth a little bit. So here we are. Nice thing about DFS, you never have to wait too long to get back in there and, try to do better the next time. So that's the attitude I'm coming in with today. And, hey, you can play 6 Rockets today, so that should be fun.
And DC, I was upset, too, because I had a really good Arizona afternoon stack in the $50 single entry, and I was in the top 10 for a lot of it, and then I fell late because Lamb and Dowdle just didn't do anything, and they were super low owned. But I was ready to come after you for the Rodgers stuff. It didn't work out.
Your afternoon players did rough when you're going into the afternoon games and you're like, I might have a shot to, ship a medium-sized GPP, and then you don't even cash at all, right? The rest of your team just does absolutely nothing.
I had one of those.
It's just brutal.
I had Bijan, Patriots defense, no snowflakes in the lineup. No snowflakes. I had Rodgers and a Rodgers double stack, and it did nothing. I didn't even cash. It was so sad.
I had Bijan. I had Vel from the Broncos, who put up 16 or 17.
I had him too.
I had Patriots defense. I had all Flames, I think, in my lineup, and then it was my last 4 were Rodgers, Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Saquon, who had a horrible game as well. So a very, very painful run out, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes.
All right, yeah. On to tonight though. We got NBA to discuss, and we're gonna go game by game. Just seems pretty easy with 5 games. So we'll go and talk about each game. We'll give our plays of the day at the end. If you guys got questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We got Memphis Doug hanging out with us. We got I clicked on this one by accident, but Big Bertha, Joe Ruff talking about Big Bertha, maybe having some kids. So a lot going on in the chat. Crew, what's going on? Having a good time here, but let's dive in. If you got questions, we'll try to get to those. Let's talk about this game, though. I want to talk about Houston, obviously. Houston is the key spot. Fred VanVleet, he is out. And, of course, we got the Washington Wizards, who I'm not saying they're playing, like, great basketball, but they're playing better basketball than I think people expected. These young guys have definitely been very, helpful for this team. I think they've done a good job filling around Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. I mean, this game could be the game. I mean, it's probably the game of the slate right now because of the Houston situation. And then you got to decide, are you running it back with Jordan Poole? So, AP, discuss the different Houston values because there's clearly a lot to talk about. And then, of course, don't forget your boy Jordan Poole.
You just gotta put the Jordan Poole.
You're never gonna let it
burn in there. I know I'm not. I mean, and look at our guy, 7,800. I mean,
he's crushing, to be honest.
He's like, he hasn't been crushing. The price tag is sky high. And yeah, I mean, with Kuzma back, I'm really curious to see how many minutes Kuzma plays. But that's not the side that we're interested in. No Fred VanVleet. He is out, which moves Amen Thompson into the starting lineup. Here's the thing. So you're going to see, from an offensive usage standpoint, everything run through Şengün and Jalen Green. Jalen Green, likely the primary ball handler. And then, guys like Jabari Smith's been terrible. I think we're going to see more Tari Eason. And then Dillon Brooks is a defender. And so one thing we talk about a lot in NFL, I guess we were talking about it on the earlier show with the slate that we have tonight, we talk about target tree. Like we like the Rams tonight because they have a clear and defined target tree. Same with Miami to an extent. I think with the Rockets, we have a much more defined usage tree, if you want to call it that, with everything running through Şengün. Great spot for Jalen Green, and then Amen Thompson and Tari Eason kind of to support that. I'm really curious to see Reed Shepherd, how much he plays. And I'm not trying to endorse Reed Shepherd, but from a true running the offense standpoint, a guy that can handle the rock, he would be kind of the other one, unless they want to give Aaron Holiday some more run. But I'm not too worried about those guys. For me, it's mainly a ton of Şengün. I'm way, way over on Şengün. I think this matchup against the Wizards, if they throw Sar out there, I mean, Şengün is going to absolutely bully him. I think we'd see more Joval to match up with Şengün. If Şengün can stay out of foul trouble, he's going to smash. And then Jalen Green might be the forgotten guy. And it's not as good of a matchup as it once was. Like last year, the year before, we smashed combo guards against this Wizards team. Koulibaly, a very, very good defender. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He'll make life a little tougher on Green, but the opportunity is going to be there. So absolutely love the Rockets. I think for me, it's kind of a 4 max a night. And I have plenty of lineups, I think, with all 4 of those guys. Tari Eason, Şengün, Jalen Green, and Amen Thompson. If you get the right script, if the Wizards keep it close, you could see all 4 of those guys, in my opinion, smash. And the Wizards side is tough. Like if I knew Kuzma was going to play full minutes, I would have interest. We don't know what his minutes are going to look like tonight. I think I'm MME in tonight. I think I have him in one. He landed in 1 build. And I did not get up to Jordan Poole at 7,800. I just would rather have more shares of Jalen Green.
All right, DC, we clearly have to talk about these Houston values, right? They're the big talk of the entire slate. I guess the question will be how many Houstons? Too many Houston, obviously. I mean, Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, those are the first 2. I'd say those 2 in Şengün, those seem like the 3 core ones that most people are going to want to be putting onto their lineups. Then it's probably Jalen Green and, of course, Dillon Brooks, who, I hate Dillon Brooks, but, he's definitely in the conversation today. Reed Shepherd as a value at 3.1K, you could consider him too. But the 3 that stand out to me are Amen, Eason, and Şengün. So I guess rank those and talk about how many are too many and what you're doing with Washington.
Those are the first 3 Rockets into my lineup as well. If you're looking at any projections, obviously we use our partners over at SaberSim. They do an awesome job. I mean, they've got the top 4 values on the slate are all Rockets. They've got the 3 that we were talking about. Amin Thompson, who we already know is going to start for Fred VanVleet. Eason will be off the bench, but he's going to get his 25 to 30 minutes, right, I think. And then Sengun, potentially in a higher minute spot here too. Rockets, obviously the big news is VanVleet is out, but Landale's going to miss this game, and Steven Adams questionable as well. So potentially a game for Sengun to hit his minute ceiling. If he does that, hard to imagine he doesn't get there against the Rockets. And then, Sabres got Reed Shepherd in, right in that mix as point per dollar values. Obviously, he's a little riskier, but, you can't be too risky at 3,100 when he is going to get some minutes, right? Like he was the Rocket. Did they play yesterday? I think they did. Or whatever their last game was. Like he was the direct backup to Fred VanVleet. Like VanVleet came out, Reed Thompson came in. Now we know it's not obviously going to be the case. He's not starting, but I do feel pretty confident he's going to play 15, 20 minutes. He's kind of a true point guard. What Sabre got him for 19 minutes out there. So yeah, that sounds right to me. And like you said, Mangone, the question is, how many Rockets do you want? I don't think you can avoid them entirely. Like I just don't see. I think they're going to have at least 2, but I mean, they could easily have 3 or 4 guys with the beloved flame emoji by them at the end of the night. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they got 5 guys there. They just, it's obviously the perfect matchup, and they all seem underpriced. Like literally like everybody that's going to play minutes for them seems like a good value to me, including, Jalen Green, who when we get in situations like this, shorthanded teams, oftentimes it's the more expensive guys that you can fade more easily, right? Because they just have to have bigger games, right? Like a 35 from Jalen Green probably not going to be enough. So 7,400 for him. I still think he's a good play, but I do, don't think he's as secure to put up a good point per dollar performance as his teammates. I'm with you. I ranked them Thompson 1, Eason 2, Sengun 3, and then I think it's kind of close between Shepherd, Brooks, and Jalen Green are the ones I'm looking at. But yeah, at least 3 Rockets in my lineups, and I'm okay going to 4 and potentially 5 if I find a build that I really like. Obviously a shorter slate, and I just think that they could get there as a team. So tons of Rockets in my lineup. I don't see how you can really get away from it. The tougher question, right, especially if you're going super Rocket heavy, which I am, is do you want to play the Wizards as run backs? It would be a lot easier to do so, I think, if Kuzma wasn't coming back from this game, right? He's missed, 5 or 6 games. We like AP said, we don't know how many minutes he's going to play, but however long he's out there for, he's obviously going to take usage away from some of the other Wizards like Jordan Poole, like Koulibaly, whose prices, have come up. I mean, he's not a value anymore, at least price-wise at 6,400. Jordan Poole, I think it's a fair price. So I don't think you have to run it back with Wizards on a little bit of a shorter slate, but it would be, if you know Kuzma is going to get the minutes, he would be the guy that I would want to play, but I don't feel super confident about that. Kuzma, Poole, and then Koulibaly. Is there any other Wizards? I don't think so. That looks super interesting to me. So obviously the game of the night, or at least it looks like that here, an hour before it starts. But yeah, Rockets. Figuring out the Rockets, I think, is pretty clearly the key to this slate. So hopefully we can get that done.
Yeah, and obviously we'll have news that comes into, like Carrington's one that we're waiting on a little bit. News that we just – wait, did we get that news?
No, I was just saying, we do need that news. Yep.
Yeah. News that we've gotten somewhat recently. Let's see. We got Branham out and Cavs starting lineup: Garland, Mitchell, Okoro, Mobley, and Allen. So those are some piece of news that came in. Nothing huge there. We move on from this game. Let's get to Brooklyn and the Pelicans. Another definitely key game on this slate. Oh, it's because they're missing Zion, Murray, McCollum. They've been missing them for a while, but it's clearly a spot that we got to get exposure to some of these plays. For one, Jose Alvarado, 6,200. He's definitely going to be a play that I think people are putting on their lineups. Murphy, that's a big one to talk about. He is back, and I think he's playing. I thought I saw between 20 and 32 minutes or something like that, or 30. Maybe one of you guys can correct me if you remember what it was, but he's definitely someone that I'm not looking to play at 6K. Mainly looking at Alvarado and Ingram. Those are two key pieces I think to discuss. And, of course, they have other values that you could obviously make a case for. We do need that starting lineup. They are playing against Brooklyn. There's other talking points on this team to discuss, and I think that's kind of the front court and what's going to happen here. With Dorian Finney-Smith out, there are some minutes to gain, right, between Claxton, Clowney, and Cam Johnson. These guys are going to dominate the front court minutes. I think there's good plays here. Claxton is definitely someone that is concerning, but I think he's going to be a chalky option. And I never love playing chalk Nick Claxton, but that's something we have to discuss. So, AP, talk about chalk Nick Claxton and some of these Pelicans options that we're looking to play on our lineups.
Yeah, Claxton, 5,700. He played 32 minutes last game, so we're over that 30-minute mark. One of their only bigs. He's going to have to play a good amount of minutes. This is a game that could go a little smaller too, which is why I have some interest in Ben Simmons. I think he's an interesting tournament value play off the bench. We saw some overlap in the last game where him and Claxton were on the court at the same time. And it's really with Dorian Finney-Smith out, it's going to free up minutes. And I don't know if that's like the most optimal path for the Nets because you have Claxton and Simmons. Like from a spacing standpoint, that causes a lot of issues. But you have Cam Thomas, and Cam Thomas doesn't need spacing. He does whatever he wants. He takes some of the most ridiculous shots that you'll ever see. He also makes some of the most ridiculous shots that you'll ever see. It's a lot of fun to watch. But on the Pelican side, Brandon Ingram, he was horrendous against Orlando. Orlando, a good defensive basketball team. We can give him a pass there. This should be a better matchup for him. The Nets have been playing well, though. Pelicans at home. Ingram, I think he's very much in play. He's one of my least favorite players to play, but he's definitely in play. You get positional flexibility, small forward, point guard. Jose Alvarado has been awesome in this role, starting with how thin that they are at the point guard position. Just look at what he's doing. I think he's kind of a building block play. I don't think his price has been adjusted enough for this role. 41 DK points against Orlando. And the other thing about Alvarado is you get the steal and block upside. 3 steals in back-to-back games. So when you're looking at FanDuel, a really, really strong point guard play. And the other thing, too, is he's just jacking up three-pointers. 11 three-point attempts last game, 7 the game before that, 9 the game before that. So Jose Alvarado, definitely a piece that you want to be interested in. I think Trey Murphy, what was said was 20 to 30 minutes. I think they need him to get all 30 if he can get 30 minutes. They need his shooting out there in a big, big way. Brandon Boston's been awesome. JRE and Messi, they're big, terrible, absolutely terrible. You're going to see maybe a 3-man rotation in the front court. I don't want to mess with that. I think JRE is fine, but really if you're multi-entering, if you're playing 150, there are paths to where Trey Murphy, with how good of a shooter he is, 3-point shooter, and he's going to chuck when he's out there. There are paths to where maybe he could get there. So in MME formats only, basically, if you're running a lot of lineups, I would have a smidge of him. Outside of that, it's Ingram, Alvarado, Brandon Boston for me, and a little bit of JRE. And then, the Nets side, honestly, I think it's a great spot for Cam Thomas to come out and chuck. And I love that he's shooting guard, small forward, eligible. I have a ton of interest in Cam Thomas, 7,200. Cameron Johnson, I liked him a lot when he's 5,500 range. His price continues to go up, and rightfully so. It's well-deserved. I think at 6,500, he's a little too much for me, but his role here should be pretty nice. And then, it's Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons against this projected second unit for the Pelicans, I think he could get there from a peripheral standpoint. So for me, he's more of a tournament play. You really need him to maximize those fantasy point per minute when he's on the court. And his rate is pretty good in that second unit. Just got to realize he's not a raw scoring guy. It steals, blocks, and peripheral stats with Ben Simmons.
Yeah, should call out too. I know people talking in the chat about Ben Simmons could play the 5. Yeah. I mean, he could. The thing I'll just call out, the one thing with his minutes have just been so tight, right? 27 to 24 minutes. Just expect that to just stay at this point. I don't think that's I don't think he's getting an uptick to like 32 or anything crazy like that until I see it. Just because, hey, that's how he is. Jalen Smith did just get ruled out. We'll talk about that game coming up shortly, and we'll touch on that when we get there. DC, I'll go over to you. Clearly a game that we have to like. I'm sure you'll be looking at getting some Pelicans on your team and talk about how you're handling these Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I mean, are the Pelicans missing 4/5 of their starting lineup? DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Zion, and Herb Jones all out here. So, we have seen kind of how this team's going to operate with these guys out for a couple of games now. It's been Alvarado, and then the other biggest beneficiary has been Brandon Boston, who we know can put the ball in the hoop. If you look at some of the tracking numbers, he's been really involved in the offense, especially last game, both distributing. He's got the ball a lot, usage-wise, driving to the basket, all that stuff. So 38 minutes in each of the last two, 37 the game before that. Clearly, they've got faith in him, assuming he's playing well. So I do like Brandon Boston quite a bit there at 5,900. He and Alvarado are my two favorites on the Pelicans. Ingram hasn't played super well recently, but obviously could go off. I like Sengun better spending up there. And then some of the guys that we'll talk about later, I like a little bit better. So I don't think I'm going to get to Ingram. It is Alvarado and Brandon Boston. Two guys I'm most interested in. The bigs here, Misi and JRE, I think they're fine plays, but I think you can do better on this slate. There's a lot of good value on this slate, even for a 5-gamer. I think we could potentially see a pretty high-scoring slate here with, frankly, most of my players coming from the Rockets or the Pelicans. I think they're clearly the two teams you want to attack here, and then maybe you spend up on, we'll get to guys like Sabonis and Fox and Wemby, of course. But I think most of the value, especially, in the kind of that mid-range, should be coming from the Pelicans and the Rockets. Obviously, talked about the Rockets, Pelicans, Boston, Alvarado both look really good to me. I think unless the Pelicans just completely flop here, which it's the NBA, you never know for sure. I do think those guys, I do have pretty strong floors and good ceilings as well. Going to be two guys aggressive shooting the basketball tonight, most likely. So, those are my two favorites on the Pelicans. Brooklyn-wise, I don't think I'm going to end up here much on my few lineups. Cam Thomas obviously has the upside. I'll leave Mr. Simmons to you guys. You can have the Ben Simmons fun. I don't think I need to quite get there myself. He's like Dylan Brooks for me with you, Mangone. I don't want to play Ben Simmons, so he's probably a fine play, but I don't know. It's Cam Thomas, my favorite there, and probably not much else, honestly, for me with Brooklyn. I get it with Claxton as well. He would be second, but more interested for sure on the Pelican side of the ball.
Yeah, AP, I'll pose a question for you. Do you like Jalen Wilson at all for Brooklyn with Dorian Finney-Smith out? I don't think it's crazy in tournaments. It's definitely more of like a large field, I think, GVP type play, but what's your thoughts, AP?
Yeah, we don't have that starting lineup yet, right?
No, not yet.
I think he's the projected. Yeah, they need, it's him or Zaire Williams. It would make more sense to have Jalen Wilson in there. They need – the problem, like, with overlapping Claxton and Ben Simmons is you got two guys that can't shoot the basketball in there. So from a spacing standpoint, you're absolutely screwed. Unless they're just like pushing in transition and running up and down the floor. Simmons can still pass the basketball. That's like the one thing that he can do, and he can defend a little bit. But yeah, I do think Jalen Wilson would be that guy. 3,800, I think is a really good price tag.
Yeah, I'll tell you a couple things. So in this game for me, like there's a lot of cash game plays in that first game we talked about in this game. And for me, looking at my cash game stuff that I'm doing tonight, like I might play Claxton and Ingram, but like I think they're bad chalk. Like I think Claxton's not great chalk. And if you like just look at Brandon Ingram's game logs, right? Playing against the Nets, who aren't a good basketball team anyways, they could win this game without Ingram playing well by like 20, and he just like kind of chills most of the game if they wanted. What game do you see that you're like, I wish I had Brandon Ingram at 8,600? Like if Brandon Ingram put up 50 on a 5-game slate like he did against Indiana, yeah. Chicago, he had 50. Yeah, I get it. Like I would be happy with it, but I don't think it would break the slate. And there's a lot of good value at that forward position that, again, I just don't think Brandon Ingram's like, I don't think he's a priority spend. I think I'd rather get different with my spend instead. DC, you're nodding your head. I guess touch on that because I feel pretty firmly about if I'm playing tournaments, I think Ingram and Claxton are guys I would want to be well under the field on. And sure, in cash games, you can eat them, but I think in tournaments, they're just too high.
Just too many good plays on this slate, I think, to get to $8,600 Brandon Ingram, at least for me. Obviously, if you're playing a ton of lineups, MMA, you're going to have some exposure there, I would assume. But if you three max or whatever, I don't think you have to get to Ingram. I'm with you, Mangone. He and Claxton not going to make the cut for me. Again, fine plays. I get why they're projecting pretty well, but I just, don't like them as much as the Houston guys. And we haven't really got to like the big spend ups for the most part, but those guys look pretty good to me too, right? And like the 7K forward range looks good where you can kind of save a little bit from Ingram. So I'm with you, Mangone. Not terrible plays by any means, just looking at different direction myself tonight.
My one last comment is, so Jeremiah Robinson Earl played 31 minutes. He's got to play heavy minutes here. Like they don't have anyone else. And we've seen it. Like look what Evan Mobley just did to this Brooklyn Net. I'm not trying to compare those two guys, completely different players, but still he's 4,500. He played 31 minutes against Orlando, tougher matchup, 12 field goal attempts. The usage was really nice. I think JRE is a pretty good value play that's going a little overlooked.
Yeah, those Pelicans values like that we were playing and people are not playing now, like a JRE, like they're definitely interesting tournament plays. So I kind of agree with you there, AP. Let's get to Cleveland and Chicago. We have that lineup already. We talked about the Cleveland lineup. Chicago, they are missing Jalen Smith. I don't know how big of a deal that is. Maybe you guys have an opinion on it. I mean, I could just see them just loading up more on just Vucevic. I could just see them just saying, hey, instead of playing 31 tonight, you're playing like 35 to like 38. And they just like push him a little bit more, especially with the size that Cleveland has. Speaking of Cleveland size, I do think it's a really good spot for someone like Evan Mobley. He's definitely shown some really good upside at the price. He's definitely someone that's on my radar on the Cleveland side. I also like Donovan Mitchell at 8,100. I mean, he's going up against the Bulls in AP. I'll go to you to talk about this. You know the Bulls. They push the pace. Post the Bernie meme that you always post about investing in the overs. Like
that's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a great
with anything. It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a great spot to invest your portfolio in Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley in an up-paced matchup. Like these are great studs to spend on this slate. Darius Garland feels expensive at 7-1, but honestly, he has upside at the price. I would invest in Darius Garland. So, sprinkle your portfolio with Cavaliers against this fast-paced Bulls team, AP. But give me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, the Cavs, I mean, they're playing so well right now. They're like an absolute wagon. And it's like a team approach. Like you would think with the run that they're on, it's all Donovan Mitchell. That's just not the case. Like he hasn't had any monster games. He's kind of deferring to his guys. And I think that's just elevated the play from everyone else on this team. Evan Mobley's been an absolute beast. I consider this like a Mobley or Allen type of situation. Allen was 10 fantasy points, 20 minutes last game, but I was against the Nets, smaller team. Mobley just went, we just talked about that. He absolutely nuked. With how the Bulls play, it does feel like probably like an Evan Mobley spot again. We've seen centers do very well against this Bulls team. So he would be on my radar. It's just tough because we have spots on this slate where you have plays that are popping because certain players are out. The pace is good. I mean, Chet Holmgren, we haven't talked about that game. He's out. That's absolutely massive. Fred VanVleet out. Cavs are healthy. And so for me, it's like one of these guys could smash. I just don't necessarily know which one it's going to be. We have seen this be a better raw scoring upside type of matchup against the Bulls since they do play at such a high pace. Maybe Donovan Mitchell gets there. I'm not torn. I usually like to play Donnie Mitch in games that are like, premium primetime type of games, which I don't think this one is necessarily going to be against the Bulls. So I don't have a strong take on any one individual play on the Cavs side. For me, it's more so like fitting one of them in, randomly, like a Mobley, an Allen, or a Donnie Mitch as a one-off versus like multiple pieces. So, and then the Bulls side, Levine 6,800 feels a little underpriced there. Tough matchup though, assuming that they put Isaac Okoro on him. And then, so while I like the overs in this game, I don't like it as much because both teams are pretty deep. I think the pace is going to be good, but not like loading the boat on this game DFS wise.
Yeah, DC, talk about this game because clearly I think it's a good DFS game because of the upside we could see, right? If the Bulls keep this competitive, I just think we could have a really nice game and there's great guys that you could spend on in this game. Like I talked about the Cleveland side. I haven't talked about the Bulls too much. One thing I'll call out, listen, I'm not dying to play Zach LaVine, but he is only 6,800. Like in tournaments, like there's upside at the price. I just don't care. And honestly, look at the shooting guard position. It's just not a great position today. Like, sure, you can make an argument that there's guys you could sprinkle in Mitchell, but overall, it just feels like a lot of these plays are overpriced and expensive at the shooting guard position. Yes, Amen Thompson you can plug in there, but you can put him at small forward. Kevin Huerter's an interesting value that we'll get to, but Levine's not crazy to play in tournaments. Then, of course, you could mix and match these other Bulls that are on the team. Vooch at 8,300 does feel pricey. If you do think he gets more minutes, I would bump him up in your projections. But, DC, talk about the Bulls and maybe some of these Cavs to spend up on.
Yeah, I do think you got to give Vucevic at least a couple-minute bump, given the fact that Jalen Smith is out. And, they don't have really another center. I'm sure, it's not like Vucevic's going to play 48 minutes, but I do think if he's playing well, if this game's close, he should have a minute ceiling game for him. I assume that would be, 36 or 37, something like that. But still, I don't really want to play him against maybe the best defensive front court in the league in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So I'm not going to get to Vooch at 8,300. I'm with you, Mangone. I think if you're going to any bowl, like Levine is the one that 6,800 is just below what his, kind of true talent price should be. So he would be my favorite, but I'm a little worried about Chicago not being able to stick with Cleveland, who's obviously playing fantastic basketball this year. It's the Cleveland side that I'm more interested in. I basically echo exactly what AP said, where I bet one of these guys gets there. The three guys that I'm really looking at are Mitchell, Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. And I wish I had a stronger preference between which of the three I want to play. Probably it's going to be Mobley or Allen for me, just with a little bit of savings. And I think guard's pretty loaded with the Rockets and Pelicans guys both filling up those guard spots. So I think Mobley is my favorite at 7,600. Jared Allen's second at 6,900. But center is loaded too, with obviously Sengun and then a couple of guys that we'll talk about going forward here. So, Mobley kind of at that power forward or forward position looks good to me as my personal favorite play in this game.
Yeah, so we did get some news. Zaire is starting, so that's a big piece of news that we'll discuss. Let me go over starting lineups. Alvarado, Boston Jr., Ingram, Murphy, Misi, starting lineup there. Thompson, Jalen Brooks, Dylan Brooks, Smith Jr., Sengun, starting lineup. We got Thunder, SGA, Isaiah Joe, Wiggins, Dort, Jalen Williams. That is the starting lineup for the Thunder. Nets, Schroeder, Thomas, Cam Johnson, Zaire starting with Claxton. So that looks like, we got Poole, Carrington, Coulibaly, Kuzma, Sarr. And that looks like the majority of the news.
Is Jalen Williams, he's starting at center?
Yes.
Yeah, they're going small. Kind of like it.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about Jalen Williams shortly, but I think he's a really good play today.
It's good for my overs bet. I'll say.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Zaire Williams stuff. Like, AP, how much are you adjusting everything based on that? Because if we look, I mean, let's pull it up. Zaire Williams he's projected he's 3,700, right? And we already have a lot of good values. He's also a shooting guard. I talked about this position is not great today, but he's only shooting guard eligible, right? He's not guard and forward. So is he just like an auto play for you? So what are you doing here with him?
Yeah, I mean, not like in autoplay, but he's definitely in the pool. I'm definitely rerunning my stuff. I was kind of thinking Jalen Wilson would start another smallish lineup. So yeah, when I rerun my stuff, he's definitely in play here, but I don't think he's one of those values that you just like lock in and go completely overweight on. But I do like the move. It's just, man, anytime you're like competing against Schroeder, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, it's a lot of mouths to feed, and he's what, the fourth option now. So yeah, but he's definitely in consideration from a value standpoint.
All right. Let's see. Let's get to, because we got to keep going with games. Next game up, let's talk about the Thunder. Let's do that one. LAC and OKC. SGA, he's one of the best projected plays on the slate. You got James Harden, the system at 9,800. It's expensive, but I understand he could be a good tournament play. Jalen Williams is definitely someone I'm looking at. And then I'm kind of looking at some of these other OKC options. You could sprinkle in an Isaiah Joe at 3,600. He's a starting shooting guard. Wiggins, Dort, these are all guys I think that are worth sprinkling in and getting exposure in tournaments. I don't think you can just ignore them. Yes, they could get benched. I could see scenarios where other guys slide into the lineup, but overall, I think there's good plays, mainly on the OKC side. The Clippers side, it's a little bit harder to get to them. Curious how to go with them going small. And honestly, it could be a massive Zubac game. I know Zubac is 8K, and people look at that price and go, I can't spend on him. But if I'm being honest, who do I actually want to spend on? I'm already spending on Brandon Ingram in spots where I don't even think he's that great of a play. I mean, SGA is not even projecting that great for a spend on this slate. Same with Wemby. Like, I think Zubac's a really interesting tournament play in this spot if it just goes really poorly for OKC and Zubac just absolutely dominates on the boards, because we know Ty Lue is just going to play Zubac. So don't ignore Zubac in tournaments. I think he's super interesting. AP, talk about Jalen Williams and some of these other options you're looking at in this game.
Yeah, JRE coming off the bench. So did we get that starting lineup? Not trying to change.
Yeah, we did. We did. I said it.
Who's starting?
It's Misi, but actually.
Oh, okay. That situation's kind of a disaster. I didn't know if they're starting Trey Murphy. Maybe that was the situation.
No,
which would be a nice sign for him.
They're
okay, that makes sense.
So the starting lineup, just so you can hear it, it is Alvarado, Boston, Ingram, Murphy, Misi.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, so we like this game, obviously, pace standpoint. It's going to be tough to predict what their coach does. He's a really good coach, but two, he could just go so many different ways. We do know the game's going to play small, and we do know that Zubac is going to be in there no matter what. Like, do we just bump Zubac up a bunch and then pair Harden with him and just like keep them as like a tandem duo, because Harden's just going to rack up all those assists, just feeding them in the paint? I think it's a really interesting game to pull a few pieces from. Norman Powell with the tough matchup, assuming Lou Dort's on him, unless they switch. I could see him at some point if Harden's going off. What they're going to do is move Lou Dort onto whoever is going off. It's what they do. So Norm Powell or James Harden. Then I bet they just kind of consolidate down onto Zubac in the paint when he gets the ball. It's just I forget who that was in chat, but it looks like he's correct. Shea is the tallest guy, 6'6", on the court, which is going to be absolutely wild. So I think this game is fine. I think Zubac's in play, Harden's in play. Jalen Williams, one of the best plays on the board. SGA, I think, is very much in play. And then it's like, what do we do with all of these rotational pieces that are going to get run? It could be Isaiah Joe one night. It could be Aaron Wiggins. It could be, probably not Caruso unless he gets there from peripheral stats. But it could be a Case and Wallace. Like, how I'm handling it is I have them all projected somewhat similarly, and it's kind of mixing and matching and rotating them in. But outside of that, it's Jalen Williams. Lou Dort, from a minute standpoint, can he hit shots? He's going to have opportunities. He's a streaky shooter, so it comes down to him hitting shots, and then it's SGA. But I think this is going to be a great game to target for fantasy purposes. The only thing I got to say is Kevin Porter Jr.'s usage is off the charts in the second unit when he gets in there. He makes some of the most like boneheaded mistakes ever, though, and gets yanked super fast. So that's a huge risk. It's only if you're like running 150 that I would include him in your pool. That's all I got to add.
All right, I agree, Mr. Bryn Sports. Zubac, I think, is going to smash. I'm not really playing GPPs tonight. If I was, I would be upping Zubac for sure. DC, I'll go over to you. Do you like Zubac in GPPs, and what's your thoughts overall on this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard not to like him with what the way OKC's playing with Jalen Williams. Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Jalen Williams for his whole career, really, and it's fun to see him kind of blossom into an awesome player. I got to get him in my lineup, given the start at center. So he's in there for me. The 8K price tag on Zubac, I mean, he's definitely earned it. It's still sticker shock paying 8K for Zubac, but as long as he doesn't get run off the court here, which I think could happen. I don't think that's the most likely scenario. This game just feels like it does have some kind of variance in it in terms of where the minutes go, the rotations really from both teams. Obviously, we don't have the sample size with OKC with the recent Chet Holmgren injury, who's, of course, one of their most important players. The OKC side, Jalen Williams, the first guy for me. It would be SGA second. I don't think I'm going to get to guys like Caruso and Dort and Isaiah Joe on this slate, but I mean, they are all super cheap and, like pretty good players in general. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys gets there, but I don't feel confident in picking which one it's going to be. And I definitely feel more confident in the value from both Houston and the Pelicans. So I probably mostly paying up for OKC and honestly for the Clippers as well, right? I think Zubac, number one for me, his upside here, if things go his way, right, he gets off to a hot start, maybe the Thunder small lineup doesn't work, right? And they've got to go away from it. The main reason they would have to do that is because Zubac is just absolutely crushing them as the only big in the game. Like you could easily see Zubac with like 15 fantasy points, 6 minutes into this game wouldn't shock me whatsoever. So I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to him, but I do think he's a really good play. He and Harden, and then if you're trying to get away from some of the chalk on Houston or the Pelicans, I do think this is the game where you put Zubac and Harden in there, maybe, an SGA and Jalen Williams, and then you get to the value, right, from Houston, I think would be a pretty decent way to build if you because, a 5-game slate, we could see a couple of blowouts, and if you get the one game that stays close and is competitive throughout, could be the key to the slate. So I do think this game, not quite as interesting to me as the Pelicans and Houston, but if you look at both sides of it, kind of collectively, I do think maybe a game stack could potentially get here, mostly with the expensive pieces is how I would play it. For
sure. Let's get to the last game. We just got the lineup for those as well. Kings are going to start pretty classic lineup. It is Fox, Herter, DeRozan, Murray, Sabonis. Spurs are starting Paul, Castle, Champagny, Barnes, Wemby. So that's starting lineup for both teams. AP, this is probably the game that is probably the most under-owned on the slate, just because not a lot to love. I mean, Kevin Herter, I think, is a starter. It clearly is a value, but a lot of spends on the Kings side, which just are going to be under-owned against a bad Spurs defense overall. And then Wemby, I think he's going to go under-owned versus some of these other studs. I mean, where people are playing Claxton and Şengün, and you can't get up to Wemby, right? That's just how it works when people just load up on those double center builds. Then Chris Paul, 6,700. I don't think people are going to him. Overall, it's a spot where this is the most under-owned game, so maybe there's some opportunity in GPPs. What do you like here?
Yeah, we've been hammering Spurs unders all season. It's been very profitable. Game manager CP3 slowing the pace down. We just haven't seen, these games are completely different than what we saw last year. So like the problem is Yeah, Kevin Huerter, great value. I am so scared that we're going to get like a bunch of Keon Ellis in there or something for defensive purposes. So I do have an under bet on this game. Always worries me because you got Fox, loves to push the pace. Not as much with like DeRozan, though. He's more of a game manager type. It's just so many mouths to feed on the Kings side, so I'm not too high on them. Keegan Murray can always get hot from three. I think he's fine. And then the Spurs. The rotation is so difficult. Some games, Keldon Johnson will play 31, 32 minutes off the bench. Other times he'll play, 25, 24. I want to see what this rotation is going to look like with Devin Vassell back. I think it will be Champagnie or Castle, probably Champagnie minutes. So I don't have a lot from this game at all. It's one that seems like an easier fade. Wemby, if you've been playing him, I mean, you can go right back to him. I've been under on him. He smashes against it seems like bad teams. It's been pretty random. Like he has 2 monster games, well 3, but 2 of them were against the Jazz, which makes sense. The Jazz are terrible. He did also have a monster game against the Clippers, so Zubac. So, yeah, maybe he could get it done. It's just against Sabonis, a guy down there elbowing everyone, jabbing everyone. It's kind of a tough matchup. He could get into some foul trouble. So I'm not too high on the bigs in this game.
All righty. DC, probably the game you're lowest on. Obviously, there's no Malik Monk there, as the chat just said. Does help Fox a little bit. Yeah, it does help his upside, and the price is going down. It keeps dropping. I know on FanDuel specifically, he's someone that was popping a little bit over there. I don't know. I'm not going to get that much exposure to it. Maybe some Kevin Huerter. How about you, DC?
Yeah, Huerter looks like the best value. I mean, you said it was going to be the, most under-owned game. Certainly the lowest owned game. Under-owned applies that maybe
lowest. Sorry, that's what I meant. Not under-owned.
No, I know. I figured, but I just kind of clarifying that I'm not. I think that is probably correct, right? That it should be the lowest owned game on the slate. Only playing a few lineups, so I don't think I'm going to get to this game at all. It's just hard the Spurs rotation is kind of tough to predict. Wembanyama obviously could smash at 10-5 in any matchup. I know, these 2 of his good games have come against Utah. We saw last year plenty of big games against tough opponents as well. If you've got a lineup that you like and you've got the salary for Wembanyama, which is certainly possible on this slate, there is enough value. I have no problem with the play, but I'm not going to get there myself. Sabonis, again, I think he's a good play, kind of like Wemby, whereas if that's where you end up on, no problem with it. Same thing with Fox. But with, Sabonis and Fox and DeRozan and Keegan Murray, it's just kind of tough right now. Obviously, you could play some Huerter. And then on the Spurs side, Wemby and CP3, but 6,700 for CP3 feels like even his ceiling was like 40. I mean, you would take it certainly, but even that maybe wouldn't be a must play on this particular slate. So pretty low on this game overall. Won't be surprised to see a couple of these guys go off, but I think there are more, predictable good performances on most of these other teams. So I'll be hoping this is, slower paced. Hopefully it hits AP's under, and hopefully we don't get too much fantasy goodness from this game because I won't have a lot of it myself.
Yeah, I won't have too much either. We'll answer questions. We'll get the plays of the day. I'll give them out now, and then we'll do questions, and then we'll get on out of here. So for me, play of the day is going to be in tournaments. Zubac is the guy. I think he's going to be a really under-owned play. If they double him up or they run him off the court, so be it. But James Harden is the system, and the system needs a screen up top, so they're not going to take him off. I'll go with Zubac as my play of the day. AP, who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be chalky one, but Şengün, been on him all day, building block play. I think that's why I'm under on Wemby and some of these other guys. I think Şengün is going to need to be in your lineups tonight. So 7,900, he's just got so much upside here. So Şengün is my play of the day.
Agree. It's Şengün season. DC, we'll go over to you. Who do you got? Who's your play of the day?
Yeah, looking at my lineups, not really playing anybody. I don't think that's going to fly super under the radar. But I'll go with my man Jalen Williams getting the start at the 5 today. I think that could, benefit some of the peripheral stats and could also lead to more minutes. I think potentially if he's playing the 5, obviously going to play plenty at the 3 and the 4, especially the 4 as well. So yeah, I'll go with Jalen Williams, who I think gets a nice bump here without Chet Holmgren, and pretty solid matchup for him as well. Jalen Williams, the DC play today.
All right, let's get to questions. So toss them in now. If you tossed one in not too long ago, I might not see it, but let's get to Kenrich Williams. Phallic likes him. Of course, Phallic likes Kenrich Williams. That does not shock me. DC, do you have any love for Kenrich Williams today?
Cannot say that I do. No Kenrich Williams for DC today.
I will say this about Kenrich Williams, not to make fun of Phallic. I think if you are looking for off the board plays like this, OKC is a great spot to do it. So I actually like the thought process of what Phallic is doing there. It's better than the Rodriguez Jr. one from the other day. Phallic, I don't know how that guy ended up doing, but I understand the thought process. I think it's trying to get outside the box there.
It makes sense. It really does. I mean, has he played yet this year?
No.
It's a good question.
He has.
He's not played yet this year. So I mean, that's
definitely out there. But you get what I'm saying with the OKC.
Yeah.
You're looking for those.
I laughed at Phallic's score yesterday, and I was punished by Aaron Rodgers for doing so. So I'm not saying anything about Mr. Phallic's score today. Looks good to me, Kevin. Looks good.
AP, Zaire or Dort? Who do you got there?
You got to go Dort with the minute upside. We have no idea what that rotation is going to be, but we know Dort is going to play a ton of minutes. So I would pick him.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there on that. I got Dort. DC, are you the same on that one?
Yep, 3 for 3 there.
All right, 3 for 3 there. Favorite value outside Amen and Eason. What do you got there for us, AP?
Yeah, I mean,
you're gonna say Dort, aren't you? Favorite value, would it be Dort?
No, I mean, it's easier if you got like an option. I'm jamming Amen and Eason, so I mean, there's a bunch of them. Isaiah Joe, like it's just mixing. Outside of those, it's mixing some of these like iffier type of value plays. So I don't have as like a confident as a value take.
Yeah. If you could ask like more specific, not like there was one earlier I saw 5,400 or below guys. None of those. Those are tough questions to figure out while we're doing everything. Keep in mind, we're finishing up our lineups and stuff. We're doing other things. Şengün and Zubac, valid fading studs. Yes, I explained it earlier. The studs aren't that great today, right? So like, look for ways to do that. I think it's really interesting. DC, what about Harrison Barnes? I know we don't love the Spurs, but can you talk yourself into some Harrison Barnes on this slate?
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough upside there. He's not even that cheap at 4,700. The minutes haven't necessarily been there. And yeah, it's especially the upside thing with him is he just has to really, really shoot the lights out, I think, to put up a big score. I don't think he gets 30 plus how many 30 plus games does he have on the year? Does he have any? I don't think he has a single 30 plus fantasy point performance this season. So on a slate with tons of value, I don't see getting to Harrison Barnes myself.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'd rather play Eason and Brooks and Thompson are all around that price.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get to Harrison Barnes. Even Huerter, I definitely like better than Harrison Barnes.
All right. Let me see. Next up is Jalen Williams and Shepard or Alvarado and Huerter. I lean Alvarado, Huerter. AP, what about you?
Yeah, Alvarado side.
All right. Dort or Wiggins? My lean is Dort. What about you, DC?
I will lean Dort as well, but I think that one's pretty close.
AP is asking on his burner. He wants us to play Ben Simmons, I think. AP, on your burner. Are you playing some Ben Simmons?
I have a little bit of him.
All right.
Definitely a risky play.
And it's Kevin O. Peterson saying he has a little. He just wanted to make sure he let us know in there.
Yep.
Wiggins or Dort? We did that. Harris Barnes Revenge. Derrick Jones Jr. DC, any Derrick Jones Jr.? I don't think on this slate. What about you?
This is just not the slate for these kind of like fourth or fifth option wing players who are going to mostly stand in the corner. I think you can do a little bit better than these guys for the most part. So, no, I don't have him. I've got Dylan Brooks in that spot at pretty much the same price tag. I like him better. Derek Jones Jr., he's fine, but kind of like the Harrison Barnes analysis where I just think his upside is pretty capped.
Yep, tend to agree. Green and SGA or Sabonis Mitchell. That's Jalen Green, SGA, Sabonis Mitchell. I actually lean Sabonis Mitchell in tournaments, AP. What about you?
The green side. Just I'm under on Sabonis.
Yeah, I get it.
It's close, though.
I think that one largely depends on kind of the rest of your lineup, I think, where else you're going with it. Close enough where, I would be kind of, trying to just make sure I don't have too much of one team or something like that.
I agree. Kevin Porter Jr., again, DC, not a guy to play on this slate. I don't know. He does getting more usage, so if he gets the minutes, but I don't know. I'm not on KPJ. What about you?
Yeah, not on this slate, no.
Herder or KPJ? We'd agree Herder, DC, right? Yeah, we just basically said
Herder, yep.
Yep. Schroeder as a last piece, AP.
Yeah, he's fine. Oh, my gosh.
Claxton or Alvarado? I'll take this one. Alvarado. I just think there's some risk to Claxton in his minutes, and we'll see what ends up happening. Mike Dunn asks 4 Rockets, 2 OKC. Okay, DC, yep. I assume you'll sign off on that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine.
Anyone else constantly get logged out of DraftKings? And then you got your code, your 2 authentication code. Always hits me, and then I'm like, shit.
I only do for the sports book, not for the fantasy. But
always fun with 3 minutes to go before lock to get locked out.
Yeah. The 2FA. All right, Eamon Thompson, Şengün, Eason, Alvarado, my 4 highest owned players. There we go.
There you go.
Night. They're all in my lineup as well, so yeah, hopefully those guys do.
See you at the top, DC.
Yeah.
All right, we don't got any more questions. Guess if you got any more, fire them in. I'm sure everyone's getting their lineups in. Gotta get the showdown stuff too. Showdown stuff is NFL locks in 15 minutes? Yeah, about 15. So I gotta get that figured out. I'll finalize my stuff. We got all of our stuff on the site. You guys got first touchdowns? My first touchdown today is Davis Allen. I went with him at 81. So hoping he can get in there. Do you got a first touchdown for the people, AP?
Tyreek Hill. He's good to go, dealing with that ligament, whatever, and he'll be fine. It's like the perfect Tyreek Hill matchup. I think he's going to get smashed. DC?
I don't think I can beat 80-1 MANGONE, but I'll go with Puka coming off the.
You guys are good. Sorry, I'll keep going. I was going to say you're gonna really think this is my burner right here. He put that in there before I said it.
That's fine.
I think JT actually accidentally called you Kevin O. Peterson, or maybe he was quoting him. But no, I like Puka here coming off obviously the ejection, another week to get healthier, and has looked good when he's been out there coming back from the injury. So Puka Nacua, one of my favorite plays tonight, showdown and touchdown bets.
All right, well. That will wrap it up for us. Any OBJ level? I don't love OBJ. Does anyone like OBJ? Anybody? No one likes OBJ.
I unclicked him on Sabre, so he wouldn't end up in any of my lineups. I was like, I don't think OBJ.
Rubio convinced me on some $200 tight end play. So
Davis Allen, my 80-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He told me to lock him, so
I don't know about
I'm running like 30, 35 builds, but I think I have a lot of them.
I might need to look into this.
The best thing about it is I can abuse Rubio on Thursday if he's wrong.
Here we go.
And if I lose money.
That is true. So, all right. Well, we just locked. That'll wrap it up for us. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the show. We got to finish up showdown lineups and we'll watch the games. NBA kicking off and NFL. It'll be a fun night. Be sure to check out all the content over at Run Pure Sports. Hit the like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. For me, Mango, AP, DC. We'll see you guys later.